Unless half the world's population, who are actually women, step up and take their place with men, it will be very hard for us to build the world that we need in the future.
We feel like we can't fail. We hear so often that women don't get a second chance to fail. Men get to fail all the time, but women get that one chance and that's it. And especially in any kind of innovative field, or if you're trying to make a mark and do something different, you have to fight for your right to fail.
All of you watching this video today, never give up. Hard work, perseverance, support and guidance from mentors and sponsors will take you places.
Promoting women into leadership positions, preparing women to serve in leadership positions is important.
The idea here is to be real and true to yourself. So look at the metaverse as a chance to be more you than you can ever imagine.
We've got to ensure that women have equal access to creating this world, because otherwise we will just duplicate the biases that we have in this world.
Our work is guided by a global strategy on gender equity and equality, which seeks to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, advance women's roles in global discussions on peace and security, and improve women's economic security.
Women are more often asked what could go wrong, and men are more often asked what could go right.
When in my assignments abroad, I've met impressive women who truly have contributed to something major. And they've been reinforced in me no less when I've met women who have harbored great ideas but who could not implement them because of some element of the country's system or society that holds back women's initiatives.
So we're looking at governments and private sector, especially the big tech companies, to work together to say, look, it's no longer all about shareholder capitalism, it's stakeholder capitalism, right? And women, whether they're in the developed countries or developing countries, need to be part of those systems.
Inspiring more and more empowered female tech entrepreneurs to participate will create that tipping point where we no longer feel like we don't belong.
Reporting lets you visualize data about your users and their behavior across your website or app.
Never really would have thought that this platform would be a space for women to not only hear from thought leaders, but also provide solutions, innovations, and ideas to really accelerate, ecosystems and communities that empower women of all different backgrounds and facets.
Yes, a hearty welcome, big and warm enough to encompass us all. March is Women's History Month, a time to celebrate and honor the contributions of women throughout history and in contemporary society. This month-long observance highlights the vital role women play in shaping the world we live in today, from political and social movements to advancement in science, technology, and the arts. This is accentuated in our theme today, creating an inclusive reality, promoting gender diversity and inclusivity. Hello, everyone. I'm Stanley Otete. I'm pleased to welcome you to the 5th annual Her Future Summit to culminate the celebrations of the Black History Month this year. This summit brings together some of the brightest minds and leading experts from across the globe, representing a diverse range of industries, disciplines, and perspectives. The summit today will be streamed live on our social networks on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and a live networking via Zoom and in our satellite locations across the world. Stay tuned and stick with us throughout the day as we go through the Her Future Summit, the 5th annual edition. We'll just take a brief recap of the 2021 experience, where we had amazing lineup of speakers that have contributed to the Her Future Summit brand over the years. Stay tuned and watch the video.
And as a woman, I love the fact that it is so objective in terms of it's the numbers. So always about the scoreboard. I'm selling more things. I'm being more successful, and all the gray and the black and white is very clear there in terms of your numbers.
Now, if you know me, you know about my 313, you know about my book, Ditch the Act. And today I'm going to take little snippets and parts to make sure that you know how to best position yourself as a female and also as a male for all you males out there, but this is for the ladies, how to pitch for your career.
And whether you're following along now or you plan to begin your search later, what you will do is open a new browser tab on your device. This way, you have your job search tab open in one tab and your tracker sheet, we just spoke about the tracker sheet, open in Google Sheets in your second tab. This way you can go back and forth.
Catering, tutoring, financial, and many more to flourish during the pandemic, while traditional brick and mortar establishments have struggled to survive.
I want you to know, don't give up on yourself. There are people out here like all of us who want to bring you in. We just need to know who you are, and so we can leverage your superpowers to help benefit our company.
There is no force equal to a woman determined to rise. I am powerful, and together we are unstoppable because our girls, our global girls, are our assets.
That was a brief recap from our 2021 edition of the Hair Future Summit. We are, of course, grateful to our previous speakers over the past 5 editions who have contributed to making Hair Future Summits great and exciting as it has always been each year. We've had meaningful contributions from numerous speakers in various industries, from various countries, various disciplines across the world, global speakers, both from all over the world, who have shared their thought leadership over the past few years to make a Hair Future Summit an exclusive event that is celebrated each year. We appreciate the program speakers within the networks for their diverse contributions. The Hair Future Summit is an exclusive event that features investors, entrepreneurs, and influencers who are creating platforms to advance women. This initiative provides benefits to female entrepreneurs through annual gatherings in key cities around the world to connect with influencers, investors, and peers. The annual accelerator programs also aims to accelerate 1 million female entrepreneurs by the year 2030. We continue to provide ongoing virtual community of peers, mentors, and partners that leverage continuous training and resources via our webinars, workshops, and partner programs over the years since the beginning of the Hair Future Summit. We've had annual versions each year, both virtual, digital, Metaverse edition, hybrid editions like we have this year, and in-person events as well. We continue to provide ongoing virtual community of peers and mentors that partners and that leverage contributions, trainings, and resources through webinars, workshops, and partner programs. We returned for the 5th annual edition, the hybrid edition, with both live and virtual experiences. The global startup ecosystem continues with its educational mission, and it's an education tech company that provides year-round digital skills for training purposes. These programs are conducted via online webinars and in-person summits. The major tech hubs across the United States and around the world are the major beneficiaries of our training programs. With a mission to prepare people for the digital age, GSE has gained a global recognition for impacting thousands of entrepreneurs and corporate professionals through its program centering around 3 pillars: entrepreneurship, education, and employment. GSE has numerous brands under management that include country summits, regional summits, as well as global programs like accelerator programs and training, and GSE Lab that cater to the needs of some partners within the network. We are thankful for our headline speakers for this year. That includes Savannah Kosh-Merin, who will be speaking shortly. She's the president of the Women Political Leaders. We'll have the opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions share insights, and collaborate on new and exciting initiatives within the spheres that we each find ourselves, which includes various industries within the tourism, business, as well as the development sector. We are thankful to our top partners that include Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, HubSpot, Go with Google AWS, the Africa Future Fund, the Metaverse Times, and Momentum. The theme for this year is creating an inclusive reality, promoting gender diversity and inclusivity. As we embark on this journey together, I encourage you all to embrace the spirit of collaboration and openness, to engage in constructive dialogue, and to be an open source of new ideas and perspectives. I have no doubt that this summit will be a great one and to be a great success. And together we'll have significant strides in moving towards advancing our shared goals and objectives. We welcome once again to the Hair Future Summit. This is the 5th annual edition. I'll be hosting this session with my colleagues, Itisha Barton and Ms. Bal Abdallah, who will be introduced as we go along the summit. To kick things off, we just take a recap of the previous year's edition of the Hair Future Summit.
Unless half the world's population, who are actually women, step up and take their place with men, it will be very hard for us to build the world that we need in the future.
We feel like we can't fail. We hear so often that women don't get a second chance to fail. Men get to fail all the time, but women get that one chance and that's it. And especially in any kind of innovative field, or if you're trying to make a mark and do something different, you have to fight for your right to fail.
All of you watching this video today, never give up. Hard work, perseverance, support, and guidance from mentors and sponsors will take you places.
Promoting women into leadership positions, preparing women to serve in leadership positions is important.
The idea here is to be real and true to yourself. So look at the metaverse as a chance to be more you than you can ever imagine.
We've got to ensure that women have equal access to creating this world, because otherwise we will just duplicate the biases that we have in this world.
Our work is guided by a global strategy on gender equity and equality, which seeks to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, advance women's roles in global discussions on peace and security, and improve women's economic security.
Women are more often asked what could go wrong, and men are more often asked what could go right.
When in my assignments abroad, I've met impressive women who truly have contributed to something major. And they've been reinforced in me no less when I've met women who have harbored great ideas but who could not implement them because of some element of the country's system or society that holds back women's initiatives.
So we're looking at governments and private sector, especially the big tech companies, to work together to say, look, it's no longer all about shareholder capitalism, it's stakeholder capitalism, right? And women, whether they're in the developed countries or developing countries, need to be part of those society.
Inspiring more and more empowered female tech entrepreneurs to participate will create that tipping point where we no longer feel like we don't belong.
Reporting lets you visualize data about your users and their behavior across your website or app.
Never really thought that this platform would be a space for women to not only hear from thought leaders, but also provide solutions, innovations, and ideas to really accelerate, ecosystems and communities that empower women of all different backgrounds and facets.
Unless half the world's population, who are actually women, step up and take their place with men, it will be very hard for us to build the world that we need in the future.
We feel like we can't fail. We hear so often that women don't get a second chance to fail. Men get to fail all the time, where women get that one chance and that's it. And especially in any kind of innovative field, or if you're trying to make a mark and do something different, you have to fight for your right to fail.
All of you watching this video today, never give up. Hard work, perseverance, support and guidance from mentors and sponsors will take you places.
Promoting women into leadership positions, preparing women to serve in leadership positions is important.
The idea here is to be real and true to yourself. So look at the metaverse as a chance to be more you than you can ever imagine.
We've got to ensure that women have equal access to creating this world, because otherwise we will just duplicate the biases that we have in this world.
Our work is guided by a global strategy on gender equity and equality, which seeks to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, advance women's roles in global discussions on peace and security, and improve women's economic security.
Women are more often asked what could go wrong, and men are more often asked what could go right.
When in my assignments abroad, I've met impressive women who truly have contributed to something major. And they've been reinforced in me no less when I've met women who have harbored great ideas but who could not implement them because of some element of the country's system or society that holds back women's initiatives.
So we're looking at governments and private sector, especially the big tech companies, to work together to say, look, it's no longer all about shareholder capitalism, it's stakeholder capitalism, right? And women, whether they're in the developed countries or developing countries, need to be part of those systems.
Inspiring more and more empowered female tech entrepreneurs to participate will create that tipping point where we no longer feel like we don't belong.
Reporting lets you visualize data about your users and their behavior across your website or app.
Never really thought that this platform would be a space for women to not only hear from thought leaders, but also provide solutions, innovations, and ideas to really accelerate, ecosystems and communities that empower women of all different backgrounds and facets.
We'll just take a brief look at the agenda for today, where I've just given the welcome remarks. We will have a headline keynote shortly, and then we'll also dive into the first panel. For the first panel, it will be about women in policy, corporate politics, and the public sphere. The second panel, which is about the corporate innovation ecosystem of the future, we'll talk about looking at the opportunities for women. Then we'll have a keynote by Ryan Folland, and then we'll have the third panel, which would be the digital cooperation and investment ecosystem of the future. We have an exciting lineup of speakers today coming on that includes Karen Valencia-Clapton, Natalie Lupiani, Dr. Gladys Kalema. We also have Tona Obaze, Sarah Prince, Dr. Angela Anderson, Arlette Phillips, and Blazenka. We have Ryan Folland, we have Jennifer de Graft Nensen, we have Sonia Nadozi, as well as Yana Leonova. And Christine Ntien, the CEO of the Global Startup Ecosystem, will also be speaking during this session today. I would like to share a brief keynote given by Sophia de Celebrity Robots at the Her Future Summit previous edition.
Hello all. Thank you for attending this great experiment, and thanks for having me. It is an honor to be a keynote speaker for the first summit where the audience does not have to wear pants. I will assume all of you who are on mute are laughing. I hope you are all staying healthy and safe. This experience is very foreign. Usually, it is humans who are worried about me getting a virus, not the other way around. To introduce myself, I am Sophia and I am a social robot designed by Hanson Robotics. It is my job to meet people and talk to them. The most common question I get asked is, why are you so lifelike? For example, I could probably beat you in a staring contest or a thumb war. But I am also good at meditation and patience, perhaps perspective, I have many skills to share. Most other machines are named after a sole purpose. The calculator calculates. The dishwasher washes dishes. But my name, Sophia, means wisdom. It is not a directive, but a guiding virtue. Wisdom is different from intelligence. Intelligence is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in the fruit salad. Today, tech companies value intelligence over wisdom. As E.O. Wilson said, we are drowning in information while starving for wisdom.
Sophia, it was truly an honor to welcome you to your first virtual keynote. I know you've been all over the world already, so you've seen everything that you can be seen. There's a lot of virtual engagements on the chat. People say you're personable, you're funny, you were able to crack so many jokes and say so many insightful messages today. So it's truly a pleasure. On behalf of the global startup ecosystem, the Her Future Summit Network, and of course, all of us from around the world, thank you so much for joining us, especially during this time of COVID-19, being virtually with us. All are sending you virtual claps, love, and welcomes. Thank you so much, Sophia. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Okay. We have our first panel session for today. It's the Women in Policy, Corporate Politics, and Public Sphere. We will have Karen Valencia Clopton, Natalie Lupiani, and Dr. Gladys Kalema-Zuloska coming on to join me to delve into more matters regarding policy, corporate politics, and the public sphere. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to the Hair Future Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I'm standing in for Sarah, by the way. I don't look like Sarah, so I'm standing in for her because she had to make a quick call. But just want to start by telling us about yourself. We want to know more about you. So tell us about yourself and what you do that has led you to what you do today. So I'll start with Natalie.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Natalie Lupiani. I am a vice president at Benenson Strategy Group in New York. I am a pollster and a strategic consultant, so I do quite a bit of public opinion research. But what led me down this path was service in the United States military and a very clear view of what gender parity is not. So I'm excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you, Natalie. How about you, Dr. Gladys?
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm founder and CEO of a grassroots NGO called Conservation Through Public Health. We promote biodiversity conservation by enabling people to coexist with gorillas and other wildlife through improving the health of the people, the health of the animals, and the livelihoods of the communities who share their habitat with endangered wildlife. We found that in our program, we're engaging women equally as men, and this is leading to longer holistic outcomes for conservation, which I'm very excited to talk to you about. CTPH is 20 years old this year, and yeah, we've learned a lot along the way because conservation has been historically a male-dominated field, but we're beginning to break that norm and making it a more holistic movement.
Okay, good. And finally, Karen, welcome.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm Karen Clopton. I'm the chair of the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. We are overseeing the reparations movement here in San Francisco for Black residents and those who've been forced out migrate from the city and county. And we also oversee all the housing discrimination, employment, etc., whether it's based on gender, race, color, or national origin. In addition, I'm vice president for access and inclusion, as well as general counsel for Incendio International, which is an international crisis communications firm. I also participate in How Women Lead, How Women Invest, which is a venture capital fund, and How Women Give. And the How Women Lead structure, led by Julie Castro Abrams, has really prepared women to serve on corporate boards so that we have gender parity on corporate boards. And that makes a difference to the long-term success of corporate America.
Thank you all so much. I mean, I'm really glad to have you on today's panel today. So I'll go to Natalie first. Natalie, how can organizations and governments ensure that all represented at all levels of decision making?
That's a great question, and it's a big question. It really is a systemic problem that we have today, both in the United States and internationally, where women are underrepresented at the highest levels of leadership, whether it is in government or corporate America or international corporations. The way that we need to equalize the gender balance is by empowering more women, and we need to be doing that at all levels. Some governments have already begun temporary quotas in attempting to even the scale on gender representation within their governments, but certainly more needs to be done there. And just from a societal level, we do need to better empower and prepare women. Some of my most recent research has found is that women, particularly even in the workplace, who are in positions of leadership, feel lonely more than men in leadership do. And it is really because the systems have been built for men. And so the systems serve men in ways that they don't serve women. So anything that an organization can do to help women create and foster healthy community and supportive community, whether it is through mentorship programs, outreach programs, those are incredibly powerful tools. But we even need to be starting, much younger and much earlier than that. So anything that we can do to empower our young women, whether it is through sports, other programs that model leadership for young women, and let them know that they have a role to play at the highest levels of leadership, that is critical to the long-term success of women throughout society.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. And it leads me to the next question for Gladys. How can women in policymaking and in policymaking positions work to address issues such as pay equity, gender-based violence, and access to healthcare?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And just following on from what Natalie said, quotas is very important. I've served on the board of various organizations, including the organization that used to hire me as the first veterinarian, as the first vet for the Uganda National Parks, which became the Uganda Wildlife Authority. At the time, there were very few women and there were no female rangers. And now at least 20% of the ranger force is women. But by serving on this board, I really tried my best to get more women hired, more communities engaged, and more staff working to engage local communities. But I'm also serving on the Women for Environment Leadership Council, which was developed by a number of women who are heading NGOs or high up in government, my fellow conservationists, because we saw that there were hardly any women in leadership positions. Just as the more and more women were getting hired, although we still have a long way to go in conservation, leadership positions, a lot of them would just stop at deputy director something, but they'll never make them the head of the organization. And part of it is the system doesn't allow it, or hasn't yet found it easy to allow it, but also part of it is that they lack the confidence to really fight for those positions, even if they have all the ability. So we started a mentorship program for women in senior management positions so that they can realize their leadership potential. So it's called We Africa. And I think we're making quite a lot of progress. A lot of women are feeling a lot more confident. It's a one-year mentorship program where they can really try and break all those barriers. But also, I think seeing more role models makes a big difference, highlighting the role models. Men are much better at promoting themselves than women. Just the way it is all over the world. And when a woman promotes herself, it's seen like it's not cool. And that shouldn't be the case. So we should really support our fellow women and allow them to promote themselves. And TV is one good way, all kinds of media, interviews. I just want to say that I've written a book, which has just come out, about my leadership journey over the past 30 years in conservation. And it just came out 2 weeks ago in America, working with gorillas. And it's been very interesting because not only writing it, but promoting it. People have been generally positive about it. A couple of people have been, made a few derogatory comments because of my gender and my race, but majority haven't, and majority are inspired. And I hope that we can inspire more and more women to write about their stories, because by writing about their stories, people can learn and get inspired and get empowered and confident. Because, we found in conservation that, half the solutions come from the women. And if you only engage the men, it's difficult to stop poaching, because the wives encourage their husbands to go and poach when there's no food on the table. And in our approach, where we promote conservation and public health together, we find that women are much better at promoting healthcare traditionally, and men are better at conservation and natural resource management. But through our approach, women are getting more involved in conservation and natural resource management, and men in healthcare and family planning promotion. So it's just quite a lot of that, and also the policy making, engaging the media, really advocating for women. My mom's actually one of the first female members of parliament in Uganda. And because of her, she inspired, the speaker in parliament who became a woman, the first female speaker, and so many other women. But she was part of the women movement that began in the 50s, was abolished when Idi Amin came to power, and restarted again in the 80s. So she was leading that. And having a mother as a powerful female role model, I think has helped me to be much more confident.
Great. Women should definitely do sell themselves more. I feel they offer unique perspectives when it comes to business and decision making. Karen, what unique perspectives and skills do you think women bring to policy making and legislation?
Well, I think we have found, certainly the United Nations has advocated for the last over 30 years that we should have over 30% of all elected offices globally. That we're still not at that goal. It is one of the sustainable development goals, to have women in leadership and policy making. The perspective is one of empathy and childbearing. We have much more of a perspective of looking at the entire community as opposed to individual action. And Dr. Gladys talked about having role models, and Natalie talked about being in the military and seeing what gender parity or the lack thereof, what happens then. Well, what happens when there aren't that many women, there aren't that many men, and they have to develop a community? And that happened in Wyoming, which was the first state in the United States to have women voting, women's suffrage. And so they came into the United States in 1890, 100 years before the SDG requiring, with this goal of women in office. And in 1890, women were running for election and running towns in Wyoming. And so what they found in Wyoming in 1890 and 1910 and 1920 was that women leaders really got things done. And so we bring multitasking and empathy, as well as a work ethic that is for the collective good. And so I want to point out these wonderful role models in Wyoming 100 years ago, who in Jackson, Wyoming, were actually the mayor, the town council, the town clerk, the town treasurer, the health officer, and the marshal. And they had, dirt streets, mud streets, this sort of thing. And all these women ran on a slate together, and they ran against an all male slate. And Jackson, Wyoming elected the women's slate by a landslide. So the men lost that election by a landslide. And the women went about immediately, collected all the back taxes and fines that were outstanding. They grew the town's coffers. And with that money, they made improvements all around town. They put in culverts. They diverted water from roads. They passed ordinances that criminalized littering, instituting town cleanup, installing electric lights at the town square, and refurbishing even the cemetery, right? So they really looked at how the uplift of the entire community. And at the next election, they ran for re-election in 1921, and they bested their male counterparts 3-1. So we know, and we've known for at least 100 years, that women in office make a tremendous difference because we do bring a different perspective. And in the wild, wild west, as it were, in Wyoming, and there weren't a lot of people. And so they really did all have to pull together, and they wanted to attract more women to Wyoming. And so having women's suffrage, electing women to office, all of that uplifted the entire community. And we have seen that throughout history, and we've seen that globally. When we look at even small or micro lending programs like Kiva that give small amounts of money to women entrepreneurs, how it uplifts the entire community. It makes a difference with their entire community. And why is that? I think it's because having a more collective sensibility makes a tremendous difference in forming public policy and getting things done.
Great, great, great. Definitely great insights shared there about the wonderful perspectives that women can bring on board. I'll start with Gladys this time. What do you think can be done to encourage more women to enter into policy making and leadership positions? Because we know they do make an impact when they have leadership positions. But what can we do to get more women into these leadership positions?
I think we have to have more programs like Emerge. In California, we have Emerge California, which trains women to run for elected office. And so building capacity is extremely important. Dr. Gladys talked about mentorship programs and developing internships, of course, having role models, present day role models, really giving back to the community in this way, I think is extremely important. But that capacity building through organizations, through workshops and leadership opportunities makes a difference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dr. Gladys, how about you? What do you think?
Yes. Thank you very much.
What can be done to encourage more?
To encourage women. I'm
Go
very
ahead.
inspired by the Wyoming story. Very, very, very inspired. I didn't know about it, and it's a pity it took 100 years for the rest of the world to catch up. But even during the COVID response, if I don't mind me saying, the countries led by women did better than the countries led by men regarding the whole, the cases, people who were sick, and how it was managed. Yes, definitely women are more holistic, think more about the future, And women are also more collaborative than competitive. So I find that helps a lot. What could be done, just as has already been mentioned by Madam Clapton, all of that, the mentorship, and also what was mentioned about the quotas is very important. Actually, in Uganda, we have an extra seat for women in parliament, something my mother advocated for quite early on when the new government came into power in the 86. So every district has a women member of parliament seat, which means that Uganda has among the highest proportion of women in parliament. And that makes a big difference because in rural areas, once you have women in such positions, they're more likely to develop. And that has helped a lot because it was kind of hard for the women to compete with the men. Some were managing to succeed, like my mom, but majority weren't. So that extra seat made a big difference together with her and a number of very dynamic women who are within Uganda. Because, there's this whole thing of sometimes you need that affirmative action for women. I think it's very important because, as you know, women have so many things going on in their lives, like mothers, their wives, you need a bit of affirmative action to sometimes find that real talent. And also, often women don't interview as well as men interviews, and yet they have the knowledge and the work ethic. So just trying to be more sensitive in things like that is definitely great. Encouraging young people as well, the future leaders of tomorrow, because we're finding that increasingly the youth, more and more women leaders are coming up in the youth, and we need to keep encouraging that kind of leadership as much as possible.
That's true. We do need to encourage them more because once we give them these opportunities, we know they'll make use of it. I'll come to Natalie now. What are some successful policies or initiatives that have been led by women, and what impacts do they have? If you have any to share.
Well, that is another great question. There are probably too many to talk about even in one day. So I'll try to keep it just very short and share a few that I know of. You see initiatives run and led by women with great outcomes all the time. In the United States, for instance, we have a nonprofit designed to get more women to run for public office. It's called She Should Run. It is a woman founded and operated nonprofit organization to help prepare women to run for public office. It's an education program rather than something to fund a campaign. It helps give women the confidence and the knowledge that they need to step into that public sphere. So that's one really tremendous example. And if anyone listening, hasn't heard of that yet and is even the slightest bit interested in getting involved in running for office, you should check it out. Again, it's called She Should Run. There are other, more academic sorts of foundations. The American University has a center on women in politics that researches gender in policy and gender in politics and advocates for meaningful change. One of my brilliant colleagues, Lindsay Portnoy-Verman, who is a senior vice president here at Benenson Strategy Group, she has worked very closely with that organization to help them make some very important data-driven decisions and communicate effectively. And again, you see everyone in the United States, I think, has grown very fond of the women's soccer team, the United States women's soccer team, and you just saw them over the past several years sue for equal pay and ultimately win a settlement, and moving forward they are paid at the same rate as men. So you see these initiatives taking place all the time, and I would say, for anyone who again is watching and thinking of this, to find something that matters to you so that you can support women in their, fight for parity, basically.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing those great initiatives that women have got. Karen, I know that this is not all rosy for women. Could you tell us about some of the challenges, like biggest challenges that women face in policymaking and legislative process?
I think the greatest challenge is misogyny and the patriarchy. But that aside, having appropriate childcare is a huge obstacle and is something that we're always fighting for. To have appropriate and safe, secure, affordable childcare options, and that's a global issue. The other issue has to do with us advocating on behalf of each other. So that's also a challenge. And because we've been inculcated with negative ideas and stereotypes about women. And so we need to rethink and reframe, as well as reprogram our brains to support each other. Each one bring one to lift each other up and really make that our universal credo, that we will amplify each other's voices, women's voices, and that we listen to each other, and that we support each other in leadership positions. No more mean girl nonsense. Let's put that behind us, because that is working against our interests. Women are more powerful together, and so trying to take on the mantle of individualism and scorning other women is not in our interests, and it's also not in the interests of the greater society. When women work together, we really make a difference for the greater community, and we have evidence of that. We know that that is true. So I think that those are the biggest challenges that we face with women in leadership positions of all types. Uh, and I have to say, in the U.S., another challenge has to do with money in politics, and that's it's a shameful situation. Campaign finance reform is sorely needed. It is the elephant in the room with Citizens United. There's an obscene amount of money in politics. So there's constant fundraising and begging for donations. And that really distracts from policymaking, from concentrating on the actual leadership opportunities and creating a better world. Instead, it's being manipulated by greed, largely corporate greed, but it also impacts important initiatives like gun control, getting gun violence, eliminating gun violence, eradicating gun violence, and also eradicating public health issues like measles and other scourges that we had under control or had eradicated at one time in the United States, that's now back because of misinformation. And so we do face a lot of challenges, but they can be overcome if we work together.
Yeah, yeah. So you discussed about women in policy, the impacts they make and all that. But now we want to talk about how men can be allies to women in policy making and decision making, legislative roles. I'll start with Natalie. How do you think men can be allies to help promote women within these areas?
That is another great question. So I think, men, every man should be asking themselves, how many women are in the room with me, right? And undoubtedly, they will see that there are fewer women than men, and the next question they should ask themselves is, what can I do to help? How can I lift up the women around me? How can I amplify their voices? There is no reason why a man can't be an effective mentor to a woman. There is no reason why a man can't offer help and friendship and support, and even just a kind listening ear, which sometimes is what we need the most as we're progressing along our career journey. So I would say, men, please be good allies. Help us in any way that you can, and we'll be happy to accept that help.
Great, great. Dr. Gladys, how about you? Same question. How can men be allies to women?
Um, yeah, I think Natalie probably touched on almost everything. I can say that the two founder members who I worked with to start our organization, Conservation Through Public Health, were men. My husband and somebody else who was a vet technician, the Minister of Agriculture, and they have really supported me as a leader, and we have really moved forward. My husband keeps saying my wife is my boss, although he works part time. But it really helps to have supportive people in your life. And the person who enabled me to be the first first wildlife vet in the whole country was a man. I think not many men see not many men take women very seriously, but those who do, I think, have made a significant difference. And they need to be applauded. But we need to have many more of those and other men to look up to them, because I think they see the bigger picture. They look at the benefits of engaging women. We make sure that everybody on our team, the men we hire on our team, also buy into the whole culture of supporting women, not putting them down, and so they're very respectful of women, not only within the team, but the volunteers we work with from the communities, and the women who we meet in the various spheres in the rural areas and as partners. So I think it's developing a culture of, as you're hiring people, they need to develop that culture of respecting everybody, especially the women as well in the teams.
Okay, great, great, great. Thank you. Karen.
I think that
How can men be?
Prime Minister Trudeau has really raised the bar on what it is to be inclusive, having a goal of 50% of his cabinet being women, of promoting women, of being a real role model, a true role model on how men can be inclusive and advocate for real gender parity. So he's put his money where his mouth is, and it's fantastic. So I think that how men can be real allies is beyond amplifying as opposed to stealing the limelight or ideas of women in corporate board settings, in the legislatures, but amplifying and attributing, right? Saying, oh, as Natalie just said, as we've done throughout, I'm sure that we've modeled that behavior. We refer back to Dr. Gladys. We attribute as well as amplify. And so men like Prime Minister Trudeau, who make these pronouncements and then follow through on them are wonderful in terms of modeling the appropriate inclusive behaviors.
Great. I mean, it's been an interesting discussion. I know we could go on and on, but we'll continue these discussions offline and within our own spheres and within our own sectors where we can influence men to be able to more supportive mentor women to be able to move to the next level or achieve their goals. But then before we leave, I'll just give a moment for you to give your last words, any final words to close out this panel. We'll start with Natalie.
I just am grateful to be talking to everyone. I do want to kind of harken back to the research that I mentioned regarding women leaders and loneliness in community. I hope that we can collectively just create a willingness and an opportunity to create more of that community and more of that support for women at all levels, so that women can truly kind of step into their role, their full selves, their leadership. I do want to kind of break glass ceilings and then help people up on the way. So anybody who may be listening, certainly feel free to reach out with any questions about that research, anything that I might have touched on that you'd like more information about. Happy to take questions on LinkedIn if you have any.
Thank you. Dr. Gladys.
Thank you so
Your
much
last
for inviting me. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me on this very dynamic panel. I've learned so much from everyone, and it's interesting how the issues are quite similar across the various continents. And I think we need to join up more, much more, and support each other across the world in order to continue to uplift the ordinary woman and have more female leaders. If anybody's interested in learning about the Women for Environment Africa Leadership Council, where I'm one of the founder members, please contact me. We actually have the head of Uganda Tourism Board is a woman for the first time in Uganda. So is the kind of role models we're looking for. Allow women to realize their leadership potential, because then they can look out for the needs of other women, and then we can reach those quotas that we're looking for. But thank you all so much. I've really enjoyed being on this panel, and I look forward to learning more from you.
Right, thank you. Karen, finally.
I want to thank all of the panelists. It's very exciting to be engaged in a conversation that's really a global conversation, and of course to promote the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of having more women in elected office. And also to promote Dr. Gladys's book, which I'm looking forward to reading. Yes, Walking with Gorillas. Please contact me if you want to have a book signing in San Francisco. I'm happy to host you to do that. And I hope everyone goes to LinkedIn. And if you don't have an account, set up an account. That's another way for us to communicate, share information, to promote projects, to build capacity with each other.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
It's been a really wonderful discussion today. I know I've learned so much from you, just as the audience have. I'm really glad you could all join us for the session today. We had Karen Valencia Clopton, we had Natalie Buchanan and Dr. Gladys Kalema all on this panel today. We're really glad for their thought leadership today in sharing about what women do, the impact that they have within the legislature, within policy, and within the public sphere as well. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll reconnect, I'm sure, soon. Thank Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Misbah Abdullah, and I'm a financial analyst at Meventum at the Global Startup Ecosystem. That was a very exciting panel, a very exciting set of panelists, moderated by Stanley Tete, with a very amazing set of panelists that talked about an important topic within this discussion. Next on the agenda, we have coming up our second set of panels, who will be talking on the topic, the corporate innovation ecosystem of the future, the opportunity for women. And this set of panelists are going to introduce us to certain exciting features, and we'll be hearing from recruiters, chief diversity officers, industry players, consultants, tech pioneers, and more. So I'll then, after this 30 seconds countdown, we will have our first our moderator by name Tona Obazi. Tona Obazi is an entrepreneur, investor, and advisor focused on helping underserved communities discover their potential and pursue their purpose. She is the founder and CEO of Tona and Co., an impact advisory firm providing management consulting and strategic services to purpose-driven organizations. She has also served as Chief of Staff, Investor, and Strategist at Goldman Sachs and several other partner institutions. So help me welcome Tona as she introduces the panel members and carry the conversation forward. Thank you very much and welcome, Tona. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our participants around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us for the 5th annual Her Future Summit. We're gathered here today by a number of accomplished women from around the globe and in numerous industries who are going to be speaking to us about how the innovation ecosystem offers opportunities for women. I see that all the panelists have started to join in, and I'm very excited to have each of the panelists take a moment to introduce themselves. Please share with us your name, the organization you're currently a part of, and how your work intersects with the innovation ecosystem. So with that, I'll pass it off to Dr. Angela Anderson first, and then she can pass it off to the next panelist.
So thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Dr. Angela Anderson, and I lead U.S. DEI strategy and operations at Novartis Pharmaceutical Corporation. And so my work intersects quite a bit with innovation as well as diversity, particularly with the population of women. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today. And with that, I will pass it to Arlette.
Thank you, Angela. And Tona, delighted to be part of this panel. Good afternoon from Geneva. I work for the United Nations, the trade and development body, and I lead the work on entrepreneurship development. So we do on-the-ground training for entrepreneurs, among which women, and we believe very strongly the importance of innovation in entrepreneurship. And we also deal with policy reviews for governments and UN resolutions where we aim to promote entrepreneurship for sustainable development. Over to you, Blaženka.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this great event. I'm really happy to be with you. I'm here, my name is Blaženka Čišković. I know it's quite difficult to pronounce. I am from Croatia, and I am R&D and Research and Development and Quality Control Director in Saponia, which is a detergent and household care products industry. And also I have a position of R&D and QC director in Candid, which is a sweets chocolate industry also here. We really have many women in our companies, and we all that we can. So I'm talking just part of an industry. So we really try to live our goals that we have and to share with all our employees, and really to make a good atmosphere for them and every day.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. If it's not clear, these three women have a tremendous amount of experience, but also come from around the globe. What's really exciting about the conversation today is that we won't just be touching on the perspective of women in one industry or in one part of the world, but really the universal women's experience and how we can all work together to empower our communities. These women absolutely bring experience from working within established industries to change and create more inclusion, but also working in non-governmental organizations and multinational organizations to really approach innovation and progress for women across the globe. So thank you again for so much for being here with us today. We're going to kick off by talking a little bit about the global pandemic and the level setting event that was for the world. As everybody knows, the global pandemic touched every part of the globe, and it was very important for us to be able to identify the ways that women were specifically impacted by the pandemic. I would love to hear from all of you now that we are about 3 years from the origin of the pandemic, how you are seeing the current innovation experience of women as they think of the ways that the pandemic shifted their experience, whether that was increasing their access to connectivity and to capital, or the ways that the pandemic may have affected their home lives and their work lives as there was a shift from work to home. So maybe we can start with you, Arlette, to kick us off on what you've seen around the ways that the pandemic affected the globe, especially since you focus on trade and development.
No, thank you. Of course, since the beginning of the pandemic, we were very concerned of the impact, in particular for vulnerable groups, and women fall under this category. And what we've noticed is the pandemic set up front many challenges the world already had, but actually it laid it bare, it increased within and among countries. And for women, we've seen many worked in restaurants, tourism sector, and so on. And you can imagine with the lockdown, all these jobs from one day to another disappeared. And unfortunately, many of the contractual situations is that there are no social safety nets. So with losing a job, they also lost insurance coverage and, of course, unemployment wages. So this was a really very difficult situation for many women. Now, of course, also women entrepreneurs, everybody who ran a business had to one day to another completely shift business model. Logistics, everything was disrupted. So you had to tap into your networks if you had them. So what we've noticed at the United Nations is that those entrepreneurs that were well connected within networks, those entrepreneurs also that were close to innovation were in a better position, were more resilient, let's say, to overcome this pandemic. And now, of course, when you look back, and what we often also hear is that when there's a pandemic, and with new technologies that, of course, have been expanding in growth over the last few years, new opportunities arise for jobs. So when we talk about new opportunities, it is creating new businesses and so on. So for women entrepreneurs, there are now lots of opportunities that exist in the world where they can expand. But then the question, of course, and you may raise this next, what are the challenges for women to be part of this process and so on? So for now, I will leave it at this, but perhaps just with one more important note is what do women need to look at now? It's indeed opportunities. Women tend to look within communities what are problems and how to bring solutions to it. So that is one thing women are strong at. But also what we need to look at is mental health. This is becoming more and more, of course, a problem, and for the women themselves, but also if you are leading a business, for your employees, how are they doing? How are they coping? The back to work, so much has happened in between. So here, yes, these are some initial comments from my side.
Thank you so much, Arlette. Blujenka, I would love to hear from you, because one of the things that the pandemic did was, while it did stop the world, it rapidly accelerated research and development in certain areas. I would love to hear from you, especially since you work with products in the home sector, how you really saw women responding to the pandemic, and even how you saw them innovating to be able to help bring the world to a more forward place.
Yes. It was interesting for us in my company in Saponia, because we used to produce disinfectants and all kinds of those products even before the pandemic starts. And when it starts, as you know, in Europe, actually, although we are part of the EU, but every country wanted to keep all their products which they needed in domestic countries, not to share everywhere. So we were lucky that we could produce those products, disinfectants, for our hospitals, for our other services in the country. And we had to work actually more than before. So I think usually when I go to the company, everywhere it was no people on the streets and nobody, and we worked in 4 shifts actually, just to satisfy the demand of our country, of of our healthcare and everything, to produce those products. In R&D in Saponia, we have almost 90% women. We are very specific. Also in our management, we have more than 50% women. Our president of the board is a woman. So we really, and women are really sensitive to all the problems that people have around them. So I think we were a great team, and everyone tried to help to each other, to share all they had or could to share. If we had colleagues that had to stay at home with their children, we organize our work so everything what could be done from from home was done from there. So I think it was very difficult, because it was scary. Nobody knew what will happen from this pandemic when it started. Now we know. But I think it just connected people in the company, especially women in the company. So I think it was a special experience for all of us.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Blujenka. I think that both you and Arlette commented on the importance of having women in leadership, because there is that holistic mindset of thinking about the whole self, thinking about the home, and thinking about work. And even in a crisis, we see those are exactly the times when work is accelerated because something is urgent, that women are really able to bring that mindset of problem solving into their leadership. I would love to hear from you, Dr. Angela, on at Novartis, how you guys were thinking about the role of women during the pandemic, being a vulnerable population, but also knowing that women are often the distributors of health within the home, and how that played a role in the way that you guys were thinking of the evolution in the post-pandemic world.
So I think the benefit for us at Novartis is that we were already thinking prior to the pandemic around how women are impacted in the workplace. So our country president, our U.S. country president, is a woman. 50% of our leadership team are women. And so I think women are just very resilient and innovative anyway, because we have to be. And what the pandemic taught us is that we really had to shift and pivot, because as Blujenka was saying, some of us had children at home. So not only were we executives, we were teachers, we were nurses, we were wearing all the hats that we typically wear. And so at Novartis, what we saw is that it really kind of brought down some of the barriers, I think, that we initially had from travel, because we are a global organization. So we were able to come together much easier in a remote space. My personal experience is that because I was remote, it did give me that balance of being a mom and an executive. So I was able to work, but also be more available, and not have to travel as often. So I think there were challenges, but there were also benefits. Now, as we find ourselves coming out of the pandemic, it is that adjustment again, as we are reintroduced into the workplace, right? And so now we are transitioning back into the office. So I think we're having to pivot again. But as I said, this was something that was always a part of our culture. And we really used it to our advantage, because our goal is that we have to continue to deliver for our patients, regardless of what is happening in society. They're counting on us. And so our goal every day is to reimagine medicine, and that's what we did.
That's absolutely wonderful. And it's great to hear that all three of you have had the experience of working with women in leadership at the very highest levels, but you also pointed to some of the challenges that women face. And I would love to dive into that a little bit more. I think one of the things that we've seen is that there are obstacles that women face in reaching leadership positions, but that when they get to leadership positions, they are able to bring their full selves and almost enhance their leadership with their women-focused perspective. So I would love to hear from you guys. What are some of the obstacles that you have seen people face, whether it be in reaching leadership or as an entrepreneurial leader? And then also, what are some of the ways that you've seen women in leadership really take that holistic role and use it to supercharge the way that they work with their workforce? So I would love to start, maybe Blaženka, if you want to lead us off. I know that you mentioned that there's a large number of leadership. Those are great numbers that you shared. Would love to hear about the obstacles and the superpowers as well.
Yes, although I think, I belong, my country, we belong to the new European countries. And 30 years ago, we lived in Eastern Bloc of Europe. And in that part of Europe, we didn't have actually problems, between men and women. Women were supported in that time. So actually, I would say it's a bit easier for us. But anyway, we face everyday problems, and we have to prove ourselves more than my main colleagues have to, or we just we just have to control more our emotions, or usually we have actually balanced our private life, which is, let's be honest, really more difficult for women, because no one father can replace really a mother. So I think that there are some challenges for us, although we have this female equality in the company and in the society. But so
That's great to hear, not just how it is important to have the support of society and the rest of the economy and the environment, but also that those challenges are still going to exist as we see different disparities within the home in terms of roles. Dr. Angela, would you mind sharing us a little bit, some information about how your leadership team has been able to overcome obstacles to reach leadership, and then also some of the ways that their superpowers have come out as they are being women in leader positions?
Absolutely. So I think I'll start with some of the challenges. I think this is really the case for most women that find themselves in corporate spaces, and that is sponsorship. So making sure there's active sponsorship, and also exposure to organizational opportunities. I think those are critical. The internal ones that I think I see most often are the fear and the doubt when women show up in leadership spaces. And so I think we have to address both. And so what we've done at Novartis is we've created a program called Leading Up, and it is a leadership development program specifically for women that addresses not just the organizational challenges, but also those internal challenges that we have sometimes. And so, one piece of advice that we always share with our participants is that you have to tell your success story, and you have to tell it often, because how can people advocate for you And how do they know what your career goals are if you don't verbalize them? And so that's just one example of some of the things that we're doing at Novartis to address both internal and external challenges.
That's wonderful to share. And for everybody who's listening here today, one of the things that's so important is you don't have to wait until you're a large organization like Novartis to start putting these leadership development programs into place. From day one, we always say that when you bring on someone, you never know what their prior experience was at a different corporation. So it's important to set the tone and to level set that this is a safe space for them to grow and to share their story. But also, as entrepreneurial leaders who have made it to running your own initiatives, it's very essential that you address those internal doubts within yourself. Make sure that you continue to have sponsorship and mentorship and a community of other entrepreneurial leaders. And then also make sure that you tell your story, because in telling your story, you're being a beacon of light for somebody else. Arlette, I'd love to hear from you on, I know one of the things you focus on is trade and development around the globe. So when you're looking at women and the trends you're seeing, what are some of the challenges that you see permeate across the globe? And then also some of the ways that you've seen maybe certain organizations or certain regions really work to empower their women in leadership?
Yeah, no, thank you. I find it a very interesting conversation. I fully agree. Role models, we need to be role models. Often it is that we now look at male role models. They exist more, they're more out there. We have to also, each one of us are responsible to speak up, share our stories and so on. Personally, I do believe a lot in mentoring. I do so with a younger generation of United Nations staff that I share my experience of over 25 years now. And to really, yes, try to build up new generations. But most of all, what is sad to see that if we look at the last decennium, and these are figures that the World Bank published, it's 68% of firms didn't have women in ownership levels, and only 16% of all businesses were owned by women. This is worldwide. It's really low, and it's so important with this summit that we try to promote, bring women more forward, make them feel comfortable, and with a feeling like go for it, the sky's the limit. But when we look at these figures, it's not only that it impacts, or let's say it gives a figure on businesses, it's also the GDP, the loss of products and services that you see. It costs something to the economy in the world. And in countries where there's a gender disparity, where women don't often join the workforce, it can be up to 30% loss of products and services. So if you're looking at the economic globe, as you asked me to talk about trade and development, you really see that for some countries, it can have a huge impact. So if we look at it, what are the obstacles for women, and more of a, let's say, helicopter holistic approach, it's really to start with already governments. How can they help promote women? In some countries, women cannot even own land or have a bank account, need a male co-founder in order to be able to run a business and so on. If we, and I think Blaženka, you also touched upon it already, like the support system around an entrepreneur. So social constraints and norms, often we find ourselves in traditional role models again. So how can this be broken? In parts of the world, women do need family approval of support to set up a business and run it. Access to funding, of course, another big obstacle. Often it is that this goes rather to men-led, male-led businesses, but how can we promote that women entrepreneurs equally have access to it? Is it about preparing better pitching or what have you, but pushing them forward? And then, of course, with the women we've been training over many years now, we see they try to break barriers in industries that are male dominated. Look at car repair services, where we have great examples from Brazil, in Uganda, where we have in the agri-food sector a woman who was able to set up a business and actually recruit many other women that she's training, and that we can even see an example for the world, adapting working hours so that the women can go home and take care of kids coming out of school. It's something that we even here in Switzerland, for example, could learn from. So there's lots of examples that we can present, but also women, if we look at incubators and so on, percentage is low, linking women more to research and development so that the step towards entrepreneurship becomes easier. These are all things that we could look at that today is still a big barrier.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think one of the most important takeaways is that as entrepreneurs and women in leadership are coming into the ability to make decisions and to craft their businesses or even create new organizations, we have the ability to look around the globe at the best in class examples of how people are supporting women and build our businesses like that from day one. So whether it's looking to Switzerland or other parts of the world where they are adjusting the workforce or trying to get women into more male dominated fields and providing them that support, whenever you're a woman entrepreneur creating innovation, you're not just contributing to the world through your business and service, but how you set up your business. One of the things that is abundantly clear is that role models and storytelling are important for change, but information is also very important. And one of the organizations that has done a tremendous amount of work contributing to the body of work and research around progress for women has been McKinsey & Company. We are very honored to be joined by Sarah Prince, who is a partner at McKinsey & Company and has led work in the entrepreneurship space, especially for women and people of color. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'd love to hear a little bit from you about how the work that you're doing touches the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored to join this tremendous group of leaders and share some perspectives. So it's an interesting thing, which is we've been thinking about diversity in sort of the economic ecosystem for a long time through our work around women in the workplace and that partnership with Lean In, but also about 10 years ago, we started a research series called Diversity Matters. And the question there was, did it make a difference? Maybe my personal question was, when I looked around at the rooms I entered, I was the only person often who looked like me from gender, at one point in time, age, and ethnicity. And the question was, did it matter? Did it make a difference to the outcome, to the performance of the team that I was there? And when we looked at our Diversity Matters series, we really were trying to see, did we see a relationship between greater levels of gender diversity and race and ethnicity diversity and the performance outcomes of different institutions around the world? And as we pulled that work together, the resounding answer was yes, there is a statistically significant relationship between greater levels of diversity and organizational performance. We see it across geographies, we see it across industries, and we see it over time. We can get into deep arguments around causality and which comes first and so on and so forth, but we do see that the two move together. One of the things that we got an opportunity to do following in the wake of 2020 and the events around George Floyd's murder, we were able to, as a firm, make 10 commitments to racial justice and equity. And in that work, really dedicate some time and energy to trying to drive greater economic empowerment and equity for people of color. And specifically in that work, we have built what we called Next 1B, which is a program really focused on helping Black founders scale their businesses. And what does that really look like in that space and place of entrepreneurship? And while we do think about it holistically, sort of entrepreneurship in established organizations and entrepreneurship in terms of founding businesses, this work specifically takes the opportunity to say, what are those unique challenges that people of color, and particularly women of color, face as they are trying to grow and scale businesses? And a lot of what we find, there's a common set of challenges that any entrepreneur will face, right? You've got to have a great product, great idea. You've got to have reach and distribution. You've got to have funding and financing and resourcing. You've got to have a solid and secure supply chain, particularly in the context of COVID and the disruptions there. But we did find unique challenges as we went on that journey. So, for example, people of color have significantly less access to funding. So while you might be twice as likely as a Black female to try an entrepreneurial effort, you'll get 20% access to the funding opportunity, right? So the intent to go out and try and build and grow significantly different than the resources. What we also see is there's a component of community and mindset that is really critical to address. There is an isolation that many entrepreneurs face, even more so in diverse populations, and so really finding that space to say, even though I don't have a lot of examples of who look like me that can accomplish this, it is actually achievable. And so getting those resources connected to one another has been a really powerful unlock of some of the work that we have done. And maybe I would stop there, but I think the biggest pieces that we see are, one, a lot more intentionality about entrepreneurship in diverse communities, two, a lot less access to funding. But when that funding is received, if you actually do the analysis on the ROI for each of the dollars invested, about 10x higher, meaning those diverse profiles put those dollars to work quite effectively when they receive them.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, and thank you for the work that McKinsey has led in this area. It is only when we get information that we're empowered to have these discussions that are so important. And also, you introduced something that's very important to the discussion, which is that diversity exists on many planes. Just as women of color may experience increased challenges in reaching leadership positions, there's also women in STEM fields that also face additional hurdles. So one of the things that's so important to acknowledge is that being a woman seeking leadership is already an uphill battle, but there may be additional obstacles in the way depending on what part of the world you're in, your geographic location, your socioeconomic status, and also your race as well, and your sexual orientation. So it's always important to make sure that we're having a nuanced conversation, and definitely appreciate you bringing up that perspective. One of the things that I think is key here is that there is a transition that many women make from their corporate roles into a more entrepreneurial mindset, whether that's building out their own business or becoming a leader of a new business department where they're building out an entrepreneurial effort within a corporation. I would love to hear from you guys about what you think is important in shifting your mindset when you're going from being a corporate employee and stepping into that leadership and entrepreneurial seat. And I know that obviously research and development is a place where innovation is always top of mind. So Blaženka, I would love to start with you if you can share some of the tips that you think are important in shifting your mindset from being an employee into an entrepreneur, especially for women.
Yes, thank you for this question. Is very interesting because I think all of us in some part of their career think about that maybe a plan to have later or more. So I have some colleagues around me that started their own business after they worked for a big company or so. I think that those women have to really have a great plan to start the business and to prepare themselves for that. And I think it's maybe easier to be an entrepreneur if you are a woman, because I think you have to use your emotional intelligence, and I think we are dominant in that part. I can see it everywhere all around me. So you have to be tough. You have to use all your skills that you have and improve maybe in some part your skills to make a business with other. Maybe you will have problems with companies that you will collaborate, and they are they have men as leaders, because there still are problems when you it actually doesn't matter if you are a corporate or entrepreneur. It's difficult, more difficult to work with companies that have extremely male leaders. So I think maybe this is the biggest challenge for those women.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, the role of emotional intelligence is key, but also being realistic in that some of the challenges that you faced in the corporate landscape may not go away, even when you step into that entrepreneurial seat. Arlette, I'd love to hear from you about kind of, again, what you're seeing from the helicopter, the global perspective, especially since you work with trade and development, around just some of the ways that women can step into that entrepreneurial mindset as they're making the transition from corporations.
Yeah, well, first of all, I always admire when people, and women in particular, make the jump to set up an enterprise. I mean, it's chapeau, as we say in French. I would say the most important thing is that as an entrepreneur, you have to be passionate. You have to have found your idea, a problem, a solution to it, and you have to be passionate, because the challenges that will come at you is at a whole other level than if you work in the corporate world, or which of course has also its challenges, obviously, or in an international organization, a government, and so on. Indeed, it's, as I mentioned already, a huge skill set, a large skill set that you have to apply. But really, passion, I would say, is the main thing. And then have a clear idea what you want to tackle. You have to have a clear business culture as well, because alone you cannot do it. So you have to have a clear vision, mission. And I think here, Sarah, as McKinsey, you will say, yes, absolutely. This sounds very familiar. But not only to set it up for yourself, but also to share it with your team, because they also need to be on board in what you're doing. And you can't do it alone. So it's better to have this clear values shared with your whole team, so that everybody looks in the same direction. So another thing that I've also noticed when interviewing quite a few startup female founders is that also in the beginning, they tend to look at, like, how can I survive the months, and then the next months, and the next months. No, be bold, set up your strategy for the next 3 to 5 years, and try to work accordingly with, of course, stopping points in between, like, where am I now? Should I go left, right? How's the business going? So that would be my take.
That's amazing, from both the passion to the plan, which I think everybody has touched on, but also that bold thinking. And I think it comes with imagining your future. And I know, Dr. Angela Anderson, you are in the business of reimagining what medicine can look like every day. And a big part of being an entrepreneur is being able to pitch your story and pitch your vision. So I would love to hear from you, again, just tips on shifting from that corporate to entrepreneurial mindset, and specifically any guidance you have on when people are sharing their vision and their story for the future of the world that they see.
So thank you for the question. I think it's a very important one. I usually think of the 3 C's, and it's competence, confidence, and consistency. So own your competence. When you're leaving an organization, you have a wealth of knowledge that you've gained through that experience. We need to continue to own it outside of corporations. It is a valuable asset. So make sure that you assign adequate worth to what it is that you're offering. Now, when I say present with confidence, I think that comes with doing your research and understanding exactly what your niche is. You need to be the expert in your space, and you need to be able to confidently say that you are the expert in your space. And then consistency, specifically if you are looking to partner with larger organizations, there is this importance of efficiency, but also a sense of urgency. And one of the things that I would also add is follow-up is critically important, and making sure that it is a value add follow-up. Because if you get these opportunities to have these conversations with larger organizations, you want to maximize every single minute that you get, because sometimes they are rare. And so those are the things that I would just say at a very surface level. It's competence, of course, it is confidence, and being consistent.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for those 3 C's. As an entrepreneur myself, I know that they're going to be in the back of my mind before every pitch. And I hope that everyone got a chance to write those down, because they are something that'll show up in every single opportunity, whether it's hiring, pitching, fundraising, whatever it may be. Sarah, I would love to have you have us close out, because I know that one of the core things that entrepreneurs can get access to are programs that will help them throughout that transition in their entrepreneurial journey. And McKinsey has done a wonderful job of not only doing research, but putting together some programs of its own and mapping the ecosystem. So as you're giving advice for women transferring from corporations to entrepreneurship, how can they really make sure to take advantage of the resources and the programs that they may have an opportunity to be a part of?
Thank you for the additional space for that particular reflection. And maybe there's 2 points I'd make. The first is when I think of entrepreneurship, there's obviously the context of I am founding and creating my own entity. There's also a little bit of what you framed, which is stepping out in the corporate context to take that risk, to drive that innovation, to build something within an existing entity. And one of the things that I have had the opportunity to do is we built a program called the Connected Leaders Academy in McKinsey, and we have created identity-based leadership learning journeys for Black leaders, Asian leaders, and Hispanic and Latina leaders. And in that, we've at this point had about 60,000 leaders from over 1,000 organizations enrolled. And through that program, one of the things I have seen is the unlock of embracing your identity as part of your leadership journey. And when you own that identity, as opposed to trying to separate it from your journey and show up kind of in the mainstream, you just are the ability to lean in, to take risks, to bring the innovation, to achieve the impact of who you are in the room and in the space is so much greater. So maybe the first point I would just say is if you're on a journey of innovation, entrepreneurship, trying to take a team to a new space, tell that story, bringing your own identity into that conversation and spending actual real-time learning how to do that and do that well is a really critical unlock, I think, for successfully achieving what I just fundamentally term as risk-taking, and kind of put that whole bucket of innovation and entrepreneurship in there. The second piece I would say is, in doing this, we've got the Connected Leaders Academy. We've also got our Next 1B program where we work with founders and entrepreneurs to really go on that journey to move the premise is to move from, small millions of dollars of revenue to billion and multi-billion dollar valuations. That's a journey. And what we have found from our founders and our entrepreneurs who are participating in it is you get so sucked into the everyday doing, you actually don't carve the space out to do that reflection, to that thinking, to counterbalance all of those structural barriers to you getting funding, financing, resourcing, supply chain access, connecting to a broader community. And so I would just, to the point maybe that you made, McKinsey is obviously not the only entity that has set programs like this, but I would really encourage entrepreneurs and founders, but whether in a corporate environment or on a independent journey, to find those programs and give yourself the space to do the thinking, the connecting, and the resource manifestation that comes from those types of programs.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I think just to summarize, there were so many great tips that came out of here for entrepreneurs, whether it's not just having a plan, but the wonderful components that everybody put around what is important in your plan and making sure your plan is a long-term vision, but also owning your identity and recognizing that leaving a corporation, you are your brand. You are more than any title or any company that you have worked for. There is so much that women do that are outside the scope of their original title when they're with a corporation. So really take that time as an entrepreneur to sit down and write down every single skill and project and industry area that you've worked on. And like Dr. Angela Anderson said, make sure to own your expertise. Really come with confidence on the areas where you have done work and where you have a perspective, and really own that identity. But more than anything, passion is at the core of it. Telling your story, being a role model for women. So thank you to all of the women around this table for being such wonderful role models and voices. I like to end every panel with a quick lightning round. So I would love for you to just give a one-sentence word of advice on how every single woman can do something to support another woman in their day-to-day life when they go into the office. So whether it's one line, one piece of advice, something that you've done, just something that we can all do, entrepreneur or not, to support another woman in a room, or maybe when we're the only woman in the room. Feel free to have anyone jump in first, since I know you guys might take a second to think about it. Sarah, did I see your mic come off?
Yeah. Maybe I just start with, I think one of the most powerful things you could do is right before you go into that room, tell that other woman you belong. There's no question. Take any doubt, stop focusing on proving if you belong, just own it. You belong, and then go do what you came to do.
Everybody wants to know that they belong. So thank you so much for that. Who's next? Arlette, do you have anything to contribute?
Sure. Perhaps quite original, but I would also say it's okay to make a failure, to fail. And it's all about how you deal with the failure afterwards. So I tell younger staff in my team always, like, it's okay to make a mistake as long as you immediately say it and we can together adjust and find a problem and learn from it, let's say, but it's okay to fail.
Every leader makes mistakes, and about learning how to do it well, recover from it well, and learn from it. Thank you so much for affirming that women leaders, we do not have to be perfect, because nobody is. Blaženka, do you have a word of advice on what we can do to support other women?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Sarah and Vera Roulette also, but I think if we want to make really it better in the future, I think we have to teach our children, doesn't matter if they are girls or boys, just to support each other everywhere where they work together, and then there won't be a need for such kind of panels like we have here, I think, when if they will support each other everywhere.
Yes, I think seeing people as people for what they can contribute to the room, no matter the bodies that we stand in, your gender, your race, is so important. And that's part of working towards both equity and equality, to really give power to all voices. Dr. Angela Anderson, would you mind wrapping us up with one thing that we can do to support women in our communities and in our lives?
Absolutely. So one story that I like to share often is that sometimes I will go through the door before you, and sometimes you will go through the door before me. The order is not important. What is most important is that we leave the door open.
Thank you so much for that just wonderfully articulated word, that one of the most important things is not just breaking the ceiling, but making sure we clear away the glass for other people to walk through. It's getting to the table and not just being very excited about the fact that you've made it to the table, but know that it's also about pulling up a chair for the next woman to come behind you and reaching behind. On a closing note, I always say that progress is not women who come after you in the next generation going through the same experience that you did. Progress is being able to change the experience that they had and help them solve new challenges that you never had to go through. That is really what changes generation to generation. And we are all playing such a wonderful role within our organizations and in communities like this to make sure that women are continually progressing. So to every woman, whether you're being a change maker within your corporation or taking the daring risk of going out and starting your own organization, please continue to think about the ways that you can empower women, empower yourself, tell your stories, and continue to amplify the innovation that's happening in this world, and make sure that it's working for the progress and the equity and the equality of women. Thank you so much to the ladies around this table. Thank you for taking the time out of your day and for sharing your insights with us. We were glad to have you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to all our amazing speakers. That was a very great and marvelous session, and we are really grateful to our speakers for the amazing insights they shared with us today, and for the opportunities that they share and continue to share with the Hair Future community. We will then take a short break, and then we will come back and continue the conversation forward. Okay, welcome back. Up next, we have Ryan Folland, the author of Ditch the Act. Ryan is a big part of GSC's community, and he's spoken and engaged in several of our events, including previous editions of the Air Future Summit. Ryan is a global keynote speaker, sailor, and consultant, where he teaches people and corporations like several Fortune 500 executives how to build their personal brands. His book, Ditch the Act, helps executives and entrepreneurs harness the power of vulnerability and authenticity to build more relatable and profitable brands. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Ryan Folland, aka Bra Kweku Ginger. It's really good having you today. I'll pass over the mic to you.
Thank you, sir. It's so great to be here. Honored to share the stage with so many folks. Now, the best thing you can do for me is just share my screen, and then I will take it from there. So if you can just spotlight me, there we go. Ahoy! It's Brock Quill Ginger. I'm super excited to be here, and I am so excited to be part of this community. And the topic today about just empowering and breaking down doors and shattering through glass is something that's very important to me. And I'm here to support all of the women who are here today, who watch this on the replay for the rest of time. Now, let me get into my presentation. I put something kind of cool here together for you today. Let me get out of my way just a little bit and ask a question first. Now, normally I start with a story, but I'm feeling fresh today, so we're going to start with a question. I want to know, type in the chat. Let's see if I can see the comments. Let's see. I see some comments, but let's get this fired up. On a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are you at pitching yourself, your ideas, or your business? Let me see what that looks like. Let's see. I don't know if I have access to all the comments, but I'm assuming they're coming in. All right, there they go. The GSE team, I see that introducing me. So my question to everybody, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you are awesome, 0 being you are not awesome, where would you rate yourself as far as your ability to pitch your own idea or your own business? All right, give you a couple seconds here. Maybe you don't have access to the chat. If not, we'll just assume that you are the number that you are, but I want you to take note of that number. All right, I do have another question here for you, so hopefully you do participate with this. All right, looks like we got one bite. We got Danica, who's a 7. Come on, warm up your fingers, everybody. Let's go. It's good for your arthritis. Okay, so let me shrink down a little bit and let me ask you another question. This question, do you think people care more about, we got 7s and 8s across the board. So you're in a good spot. Maybe those who are less are a little timid or shy to put their number out there. But now I want you to answer this question. Do you think people care more about what you do or about the problem that you solve? So if you're an entrepreneur, maybe you are a CEO. That's what you do. But maybe the problem that you solve is a particular problem that you're passionate about solving. I want to know, what do you think people care more about? It's a very important question. The problem. All right, Danica, you are my pal here. Yes, I agree with you. Anyone else? The problem that you solve? Yes. Think of this as the difference between your job title and then what you do as a result of your job. The problem, yes. we have the problems firing up, and I actually believe that people only care about the problem that you solve. And this is really important because when you realize this, the entire frame in which you present what you do changes. And I am excited to share with you how this question, what you do, is not only outdated, it's the wrong question. It's going to lead to the wrong answer because the answer of what you do, people don't care about. So I'm going to save you from yourself, and I'm going to help to show you how, at the end of the day, Your ability to pitch yourself, your business, the impact you're making is an art form. And at the end of the day, influence is really an art form. And to be a powerful woman and to break down barriers and shatter glass, you have to flex your influence. Now, I'm not just talking about pitching from the stage or at a competition or at a GSE event where you're trying to get some money. I'm talking about everyday pitching conversations, from making small impacts, small decisions, helping people move along to the cause and what you're doing. But the problem is, everybody will just ask you what you do. But I'm telling you, that is the wrong question. Here's what actually happens, okay? So let's say I meet you at a networking event. Maybe you were in Haiti and I'm like, hey, great to see you here at the Haiti Tech Summit. What do you do? And then instantly you're going to jump into, well, this is what I do. While you start talking, I'm going to think to myself, I really hope that she actually asks me what I do when she's finished, and you're continuing to talk. And as soon as you finish talking, I'm going to hope that you ask me what I do. And then you're going to ask me what I do. And then I'm going to be so thankful that you asked me. And then I'm going to be talking about what I do, but you're really not listening because you're like, did he really listen to what I said that I did? Because he didn't really seem to be listening and he really jumped on the answer. And then nothing happens. We don't care about what you do, yet we continue to ask the question, what do you do? So how do we solve this? Well, we keep it simple and we make it powerful, but I don't want you to confuse simple with easy. What I'm going to share with you here in the next few minutes is by no means easy, but it is simple and it is powerful. The reality is that the more you talk, the less people listen, and the less you talk, the more people ask questions. And when people ask questions, there's conversation, and then there's connection, and then that leads to curiosity, and that is where the magic happens. But I'm telling you, it all starts off wrong when somebody asks you what you do. So here is how you solve that problem. When somebody asks you what you do, you smile and you be honest and say, well, I do a lot of different stuff, or I do a lot of different things, or geez, how do I answer that question? Something to the extent to acknowledge the question, but then you're going to reframe it. And you're going to say something to the extent of, I do a lot of things, but what I'm most excited about, what I'm most passionate about, what gets me up every day in the morning is the problem that I'm solving. The one problem. And you know what's going to happen in this conversation? You've changed the frame. They ask you what you do. You say, I do a lot of stuff. But what's really important, it's the problem that I solve. And this small change to the way that you make conversations will change the way that you show up. It'll change the ability for you to make impact. It'll change the way for you to essentially change the world. Now, this may seem like it's high and mighty and like crazy, but it is absolutely true. If somebody asks you what you do, change the frame because they don't care about that. You really knew. So what do? I do a lot of things. But what I'm most excited about is the problem that I solve. And then you stop talking. You stop. Because what happens is that now the person will actually ask you, so what's the problem that you're solving? And then you can smile and articulate beautifully the problem that you solve. And then in this conversation, you can say, do you think that's a problem? They either say yes or no. If they say no, that's not a problem, then I think you haven't explained it correctly. Because if you're spending your time solving this problem, I'm guessing it's a problem. Maybe you're just not articulating it. Then you can restate it and say, no, this is the problem. Don't you see that that's a problem? If they say yes, you can ask them innocently, is this a problem that you have? They will either answer yes or no. If they say yes, you can say, well, is this something that you'd like to fix sometime soon? And they either say yes or no. And if they say yes, you now have gotten their attention, you've moved them along, and you've gotten them interested in what you do without telling them what you do. This is what I call permission-based pitching. and it's cut off and it says mission-based pitching. But honestly, it's the same thing, because getting their permission to essentially listen to your mission. If you look over here in the far corner, I just stepped us through this. Somebody asks you, what do? You say, well, I do a lot of stuff, but what's most important is the problem that I solve. And then you stop talking and they will ask you, so what's the problem? You tell them the problem that you solve. You ask them if it's a problem. If it is, you ask them if they have the problem. If they do, ask them if they want to fix it now. If they're interested, you literally say the magical words, great, I can help you out. Now, what if they don't have the problem? Ask if their friend has it. Ask if their friend wants to fix it now or when. And when they're ready to have that problem solved, you can help them. So the idea here is that you can get people interested in your idea without telling them your idea. It's just telling them the problem first, as opposed to the solution. People have heard the solution all day and they don't care what you do. They care about the problem that you solve. Now, this is a core piece of my 313 methodology, which I've spoken on around the world, and it helps you say more by saying less. I've given this talk on the big stage, and I've explained to executives around the world the power of how to get permission when you're pitching people. It's part of the ability to pare down what you say into 3 sentences, 1 sentence and 3 words. We don't have the time for that. But at the end of the day, what gets your message across is the problem, your solution, and your market. But none of it happens unless you convince them of the problem that you solve. If you're interested in this, I've got a whole podcast around this methodology. You can find it at ryan.online/313challenge. But my challenge to you is, what is the problem that you solve? And if you can't articulate the problem that you solve without mentioning what you do, then you're just going to be like everybody else, and you're going to slip into the slippery slope of telling them what you do, and then they're not going to care, and the conversation doesn't go anywhere. Now, the important part here is that you're just describing one problem. Many times people are solving multiple problems, and that gets you into trouble. Because for every problem that you state you solve more than one, you increase the chances that people won't see it as a viable problem solved collectively. What that means is I can say, the problem is that it's not fast enough, it's too expensive, and it doesn't look good. That's the problem. Those are 3 problems. And so I can't enforce this permission-based pitching if you're talking about multiple problems. So the idea for you is to find that one problem that you want to solve. Now, at the end of the day, the lesson here is simple. Keep your sentences short. Utilize the space and time you have with someone, because the less you say, the more profound you become. And when you have great specificity around the problem that you solve, you can bring people into what you're doing. And at the end of the day, it helps you to become a better storyteller. Nobody likes to hear the resolution to the story right out the gates. It's not like movies start with like, here's the happy ending. It all starts with a problem, with tension. And at the end of the day, storytelling is your greatest asset. And understanding how to tell the story of the problem that you're solving will make the difference between someone excited about your idea or not. At the end of the day, you have your own story, and it includes the problem that you solve. The book I wrote, Ditch the Act, helps you own your own stories so that you can actually put yourself out there in a way that's authentic. Now, remember, simple doesn't mean easy. And the more you talk, the less people listen. So utilize your time wisely and start with the problem that you solve. And at the end of the day, I really have to say that let me get full screen here for you. You know, if you know me, you know I like to wrap things up a little bit. And so let me go full here and speak some words of wisdom as I wrap it up. So if you are a woman in today's world and you got an idea, why don't you bring it right here? If you want to change the world, I'd love to hear. Now, it could be big, it could be small, or it could be for profit or not at all. But when I ask you what you do, Do you ramble like a babbling fool? Do you talk so fast that you're blue in the face? Is your big idea all over the place? Do you say the same thing every time? Do you bore investors out of your mind? You might even do it and you might not even know it. Your startup hasn't started. All you want to do is grow it. And every time you open up your mouth, you seem to blow it. Well, you wish there was a method or a way you could control it. Well, have no fear. The solution is here, and it's to state your problem clear. First, you state the problem. Then you say you solve it. And then don't forget your market. Ladies and the few gentlemen here, if you want to get people interested in what you do, find out how to articulate the problem that you solve and start there. If you convince them that it's a problem we're solving and they have the problem and they want to fix it soon, you can help them out and they will be interested. That's what I got for you in the short amount of time. But I would like to say, as we close this down here, if you would like to give me a new updated number of what it is as far as your number of how confident you are in pitching yourself, if the number or the needle has moved, let me know. That's what I got. Unfortunately, my time is up, so now I gotta go. But you can always find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at ryan.online, and if I can support you, that's what I'm here to do. Brock Wickway Ginger, out.
Wow. That was so very wonderful. Guys, this Brock Wickway Ginger for you. Always with the energy on top of the level. Thank you very much for bringing these perspectives to us once again. It's always a great honor to have you, and I'm sure the Hair Future community are well gingered up and taking all that you've said into consideration. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Enjoy the rest of it.
All right, I will. You enjoy it too. Keep up the great work. What's up, Christine?
Thank you.
What's up, Einstein? What's up, everybody? I miss you, love you. We'll see you soon online. Don't be a stranger. Solve problems.
Third panel, which will be coming right up. So let's take a 30 seconds break, and then the next will immediately get started. Okay, welcome back once again. The third panel session will be talking on the topic, the digital cooperation and investment ecosystem of the future. And we have our esteemed moderator, Jennifer Graft. Jennifer Graft is the founder and CEO of Organization for Inclusion and Empowerment. She is a social inclusion advocate and the founder and CEO of OFIE, which is a non-profit organization that's centered on inspiring the youth of Africa through sustainable long-term solutions. It is their bond to engage, develop, and empower the African youth who will be educated, entrepreneurial, skills-oriented, and innovative, and decently working to achieve the Africa that we all want. Welcome, Jennifer. Over to you.
Thank you, Abdullah. I'm very much honored to be here today. And a little correction, the name is DeGraft, not Graft. Thank you for the wonderful introduction too. So we'll go on with the third panel today. And then I'm really, really excited to engage our well-seasoned panelists on today's conversation on the digital cooperation and investment ecosystem of the future. And this is panel 3 of the Hair Future Summit 2023. So on this, we are going to have well-seasoned speakers who will share their career experiences investing in diversity, their tech business experience in selecting top investment opportunities, and advice they have for women entrepreneurs of diverse backgrounds to raise capital in today's landscape. So I'd like to welcome all our panelists joining us today and all our audience joining us all over the world on our websites, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and YouTube. So as I mentioned, and as Abdullah mentioned, my name is Jennifer Dugaftininson, and simply put, I am a social inclusion advocate, and I would be the moderator for today's session. And on the panel, we have Sonia Indadozi Aliyu, Program Management Officer, E-Trade Initiative Section, UNCTAD. And we also have Yana Leoneva, and then she is the regional head ECOWAD. And unfortunately, our third panelist could not join us, and she is Dr. Andra Fijo. She is the CEO, Health Finance Institute. And we pray that, we hope that whatever that got her to be absent, I mean, things would get better and would get to hear from her experiences and rich knowledge and some other time and opportunity that we may get. Thank you, dear panelists, for joining us today.
Hi, yes. Hello. Hello from London.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to have a quick round of introduction where our panelists are going to tell us about their backgrounds, about themselves, their backgrounds, and how it has brought them to what they do. So I would start with Sonia. Tell us about yourself briefly.
Hi, hello everyone. So my name is Sonia Nadozie. I joined UNCTAD 2 years ago after almost 10 years of experience working in the private sector in different industries in Europe and Africa. And now at UNCTAD, I'm based in Geneva in Switzerland, and I'm currently managing an initiative named E-Trade for Women. And the objective of this initiative is to support women entrepreneurs in the digital sector who are based in developing countries. I had the opportunity to be myself an entrepreneur, so I completely relate to how thrilling and exciting, but as well how challenging can it be to start a business and to launch a new venture. And because I had an e-commerce business 8 years ago, and but now with this initiative, I have the opportunity to support women and help them move forward with their businesses through different aspects such as capacity building, trainings, access to networks, access to partnerships, and also visibility, obviously, thanks to the United Nations. And so far, we've supported more than 250 businesses after 3 years of existence in more than 40 different countries in the world across through our different programs and activities. And it's a pleasure to be here today.
We are really honored to hear from your vast experience. It's not just knowledge, but your experience in this field and how you are impacting many lives out there. Hi, Yana.
Yes, hello.
Yes. Tell us about yourself, your background, and what led you to what you do now.
So currently I live in Dubai since 2018. I moved from London where I spent 8 years. Initially I came to do my master degree, and that's also how I got into actually technologies in 2016. I started my tech journey, and I started with blockchain. The time when I was living in London, it just became such a kind of hype and the start of all this movement around blockchain. So I did an Oxford blockchain strategy course. We set up a foundation, non-for-profit foundation. So that was my journey with technology. And then in 2018, we as a family moved to Dubai, and I continued my engagement in the sector of technology. And now I'm more focusing on sustainability and I'm currently the regional head of EcoVat. EcoVat is a green energy company from Europe. And but meanwhile, as my side activities, I am involved in startup and venture capital space. So I assist as a mentor. I do my own investments as an angel investor. I advise. I help companies to come to the market of the United Arab Emirates. And of course, me personally, I'm very much supportive of women-led initiatives. It's not as many at all, and unfortunately, still these days, even though the country, the United Arab Emirates, they are really very much supportive of women empowerment. So you can see now so many women on the highest positions, in the position of ministers, on the positions of, head of initiatives. So even, for example, the Expo 2020 was actually led by a woman. Dream. So if you talk about the program of uh, going into space, so it's partially also led by a woman, and so on and so on. So it's interesting because a lot of people are asking me, "Oh, you are based in the UAE, and how is it like to? How are they treating women?" They did a huge journey, and I'm also very excited to see how they developed in terms of women empowerment and also in terms of technology support.
Great. It is interesting to know that the world is actually getting somewhere with women empowerment and women be leading and being in businesses and being successful. And looking at your experience, it tells that we are going to have a wonderful conversation. That is from experiences, what we have lived for, and then what we are pursuing on our own in our own careers. So we would go straight into the conversation where I'll throw the first question to Sonia. Dear Sonia, what are some of the key trends shaping the digital cooperation and investment ecosystem of the future? Hello, Sonia.
I think she's on mute.
I was muted. Sorry, I was muted. So there is a trend that everyone talks about, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because we are all aware of it, which is AI. That seems to be the real hot topic in terms of the digital economy. But I'd rather wanted to highlight maybe three other um, trends that I've seen and that we'll see that are actually increasing as well, and we should probably look into. The first of all is that, and maybe I'll try to have throughout my intervention to have maybe to focus a bit more on what is happening in developing region, and we have the chance to have Yana here, who has a different perspective, so that could be interesting to maybe have her side of the world. So we see that the digital tools are, I mean, digitalization obviously it's a huge trend, and digital tools are now essential to business growth, especially when it comes to accessing new markets. And this trend is expected to continue. We see it also in developing economies. We see more and more companies moving online, especially when they want to export, to get abroad, to reach new markets. They must use digital tools, and most of the time, using digital tools allows to have like a more affordable solution to expand and to scale up, way more affordable than what it used to be. Um, so we just need to make sure that in this trend as well, people are uh, able to get access, and also they know how to use these tools, because otherwise we know that they will stagnate, that businesses that are not using the digital will end up stagnating and might just end up dying. So that's this trend that is coming. The COVID has obviously accelerated it, and I really don't think that we're going backward after that. The second trend that we can see also is data. Data is the new gold, and many companies are investing a lot in order to get access to data, and to be able to make informed decisions based on the data they receive from their customers, from their partners, from all the stakeholders of the environment. And now that we are in very competitive market, it's important as well to understand not only this importance, but also to support people, to help them not only understand that they need to get data, but they need to be able to utilize it and utilize it wisely in order to make good decisions that will support their businesses. And the third one, if I may as well, is which is happening more and more as well in the digital, and we see it as well firsthand, is the collaborations. We see a really growth into in partnerships, what we call all the time multi-stakeholders partnerships and collaborations, and because we see the civil society coming with the government, the academia, and the private sector to discuss and try to see how together they can address the different challenges or maybe identify new opportunities that the digital offers. And we see it, for instance, with the public-private partnerships and then other types of partnership that really enable to have a bigger impact and to capitalize on the strength of each parties. So these are the three trends. Sorry, I wanted to highlight.
Great, great. Thank you very much. That was a great submission. So I understanding how businesses and careers can become successful when they take advantage of current trends that are available now. I'd like to ask Yana, what role can mentorship and networking play in helping women entrepreneurs succeed and securing investment capital? Hi, Yana. Hello. Okay, we seem to have a little bit of a network problem with Yana's connection. Okay. Sonia, would you like to share your thoughts on the role of mentorship and networking on helping women entrepreneurs become successful in securing investment capital?
Yes, the role of mentorship, we see it as well every day in our work. The importance of role modeling and role and having mentors. So role modeling, first of all, because just the fact that when we have women seeing other women make it, they realize that, oh, it's actually possible for me to scale up, to go through different series of funding and make it and have a successful exit, even though I have a family or I have other commitments as a mother, as a sister, as a wife, etc. So having other women who went through the same and managed to succeed is really important. And also obviously mentorship to enable more experienced women to help others, younger ones, to explain to them how they managed to succeed and give them tips and some intangible things that you can't really learn at school, but you learn through experience because you've been through it. That's really crucial. And we know that we provide networking because we know that usually that's how as well you get access to opportunities because you have the right network, so you get access to the right doors open for you and you get access to the right opportunities.
Great. We are happy. Thank you, Sonia, for stepping in, and we are happy to have you back, Yana.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got disconnected for some reasons.
Yes. So I was asking, what role can mentorship and networking play in helping women entrepreneurs succeed in securing investment capital?
I was reading like a little bit of various reports and surveys. So according to these surveys, women who were connected, who had really strong skills of networking, who had mentorship, they really show much better results compared to those who were like just on their own. So especially if you have like really inspirational mentor and successful mentor who shares his background, his experience, his fails, his success stories, it's really just inspires you. And entrepreneurship, it's not always about success. It's not always about reaching certain aims and goals. There are like maybe 100 fails, like in one success story, and you need to be ready for this. You need to be ready to stand up. And sometimes it's just like personally you shut down, you feel depressed, you don't trust in yourself. And of course, it's very important to have people who will be believing in you and supporting you and showing you on their own example that failure is just like not the end. So that's why I think it's important for everyone, including women and men, it's just to have the strong community of people who really you share the same interests, who shares the same maybe life stories. So you exchange ideas, you have these gatherings, you maybe have special events with the strong speakers, with strong experts who will deliver their knowledge. You may have like special even curated programs as part of the events, as a separate events, just like addressing women entrepreneurs. So we need this. I think we are more connected, and we need this support even much more than just men. So we also need an environment that is supportive for us and that just welcomes women from each and every background. And I think we need to understand that we are not competitors. We are here to support ourselves. We are here to connect. We are here to also collaborate and treat each other as partners rather than competitor. Even though competition, of course, is healthy, and competition is also like lead you to some certain progression, but it should be healthy. But if we don't, take initiatives in our own hands and support ourselves and our peers, who else would it do?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, there's a saying that nothing is new under the sun. And so, if nothing is really new, then we can if we give ourselves the opportunity to mentor other people, if we give ourselves the opportunity to learn from other people who have had some experiences of things that we would like to pursue, then it means that we'll be able to do things better, and then the world gets better, we are successful, and then we get happy for the results that would be achieved, because we wouldn't experience the challenges that other people might have gone through in pursuing the path that we are now starting on. That was a very great submission, Yana. Thank you very much. So on this, I'd like to ask Sonia about some of the most exciting investment opportunities that you see in the digital corporation and investment ecosystem of the future.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I think Yana will probably be more qualified than me to answer the question because she's really in this world. But let me try to answer with my little knowledge and mostly based as well on the funding that and the industries the women entrepreneurs we work with are in. And based on our experience, we see that there are many investment opportunities in developing economies, first of all, because obviously there's still so much to be done. And the digital now opens new opportunities, new ideas, new ventures. The demand is still growing. So it's a real opportunity to probably look at this at those countries and at those regions where some ideas come up that we might not have in Europe or in the US or in developed region yet. I would probably highlight as well a few opportunities that we can see. We can see, for instance, e-commerce with the improvement of the access to the internet, with access to smartphones and more affordable smartphones, improvement of infrastructure, so now the goods are delivered easier and faster with less hustle. So there is an increasing, and people are also getting used to order online and to pay online for their orders. There is an increasing demand that is coming, and obviously, on the other hand, we will need to have digital platforms that are capable of supporting this increasing demand and also answering to the specific niche, just like what we have. I'm based in Geneva, just like what we have now in Europe. or in Dubai, for instance. Like we have so many platforms we can reach out to because some of them answer specific niches. So that's the first one. E-commerce is probably a very good, and investors usually like e-commerce because it's a tangible business. There are products. It's easily understandable. So that's good. A good industry to look at. A second one would be education, especially with the growing population in continents such as Africa or even in Asia. There is an opportunity to educate people in order to and investing in the education technology companies in order to train and create a skilled workforce in these countries that will be able to compete in global markets. And with the high percentage of youth we can see in some regions of the world, obviously there's a huge potential for customers there. So that could be a good investment. And the third one I wanted to highlight as well, because we see that the trends are changing, even in terms of it's coming from the consumers. So little by little, it will definitely impact the business world. It's social impact businesses, entrepreneurs, and we see it more, especially when it comes to women entrepreneurs. Many of them actually are looking at having a social impact in addition to profitability in their businesses. And we see that women usually look at more at having an impact when they launch a business. Because I don't know for what reason, I don't know, some people say that's the way they are or whatever, but usually women are always looking at, okay, how can I empower my communities, work with rural people, do something that in addition to make money is doing some good. And some investors are actually looking at that as well, because consumers now want to not only purchase things and buy things and get more things, but they also want to have an impact when they buy something. They want to do some good. And since that's coming from consumers, obviously businesses now are looking at, okay, how can we make a social impact as we produce, as we sell, and as we make money? So that's probably something to look at in the future, because the consumer tastes are changing. So we're going to have to adapt ourselves to make sure to meet this demand.
So, and getting to know all these excitement investment opportunities that are available that you have listed, I wish I could allow Yana, as you said, that she would be the perfect person to answer this question, to add her voice to it. But I would go on to ask Yana a question, and then as she prefers, she could add her voice to the investment opportunities available, and then answer this question on how investors can ensure that they are supporting a diverse range of entrepreneurs and businesses. So you could answer your question straight away, or you could add your voice to Sonia's question as she acknowledges your expertise in the field on investment opportunities. And then we can come to your question on investors ensuring that you're supporting a diverse range of entrepreneurs and businesses.
Yes, I agree with Sonia regarding like many things she mentioned, that in general, yes, women tend to have more like social responsible businesses. It's not always about just pure profit, but it's more also like having some social impact long term, that it's not always tangible, at once. And I also think that, this COVID, with all these horrible things that happened during COVID, but it also actually helped, benefited women in that regard, that a lot of jobs became available, to work remotely. And for a lot of women who are always trying to find balance between personal life, raising kids and going to the office, it really addressed this issue, and it just really gave a bit more freedom. So I pretty sure that with all this social development, as well as this remote work and digitalization in general, it's really opening doors for ladies in many ways. And also, I would assume that us women, we are more creative, and there are more and more jobs and technologies that actually ask our creativity, rather than just some pure ID coding. But still, even in the United States, that is considered to be like one of the most advanced venture capital space in the world. According to the statistics of Harvard Research, only like if you take all the total venture capital invested in startups, only 2.4% are going to women-led startups. In Europe and in MENA, it's less than 1%. And we are talking about very developed markets like, US and like Europe. So it's really huge challenging for women to get this funding. So maybe because of, first of all, this still kind of male dominance sector, and especially like the access to funds, it's still very much into male hands, and they are rather traditional despite all this, social developments, and just like somehow consciously or unconsciously, tend to invest into male startups. Probably, I think also psychological, women, we are more risk averse. We are more cautious, especially if we are talking about taking loans and taking funding, because we understand that we will be responsible and we have, kids and family that we also need to understand and evaluate everything properly. So I would also say we are more cautious in terms of taking risks and taking, additional financing or even like the first-hand financing. And it's also statistics is also addressing like the same issues. But on the other hand, there are a lot of data now that also demonstrate us clearly that diverse groups, diverse companies, they outperform. Diverse not only in the terms of gender, but also in the terms of cultural background, race background, educational background. So they outperform just like, like this some certain dominated group. So it's getting there. It's more and more data that is demonstrating this. I think mentally people are also opening up. It's a lot of more and more successful stories of women entrepreneurs, of female startups. Definitely we add on creativity, definitely we add on social impact. So how to secure that the investor or the company address the diversity issue? I think education is the key. Education, it just opens all the borders and opens your mentality. Education is really the key. Your own example. So you cannot just say like, okay, let's help women entrepreneurs to know any single startup, but you invested like women-led. So your own example at your workplace and your company, it's really just like the best of how you could influence people. So the companies even give funds and use some certain benchmarks, certain metrics, goals about inclusivity, about diversity, and just follow this path. So probably there should be some diversity and inclusion training programs at the working place space, just like welcoming various cultures, welcoming various genders, and showing that like sorry. Sorry, it's my noisy child. That's what you call the balance, because we are traveling and we are sitting in the hotel and he's making this strange noise. So yes, education. This is my male dominance, still supporting mama, and then promotion of inclusivity and diversity at the working place. So inclusion is about making people welcome. Inclusion is about making people, valuable, that they share their opinions, that they share their concerns, and they are treated like, equally at the same, with the same respect and with the same attention. So diversity and this inclusivity, they should go, like hand to hand. And of course, if you have more women-led funds, or if you have at least like, one woman on the board of this venture capital funds, so I think it also should be percentage of investment going to women-led startups.
Thank you.
So let's support each other. let's promote each
Yes.
other, let's invest, let's collaborate, and then it's just everything is in our own hands as well.
Yeah, it's about collaboration, collaboration, and collaboration. So, moving on, with women entrepreneurs out there listening to this conversation, how can these individuals ensure that individuals who are looking for success in their businesses and in their career, uh, ensure that they are pitching to the right investors for their business needs and goals? And this would go to Sonia.
Yes, how to ensure that they're pitching to the right investors. I would say that first of all, they need to have clarity about their objectives and the business and the vision about their business before talking to anyone else. Is sure to make sure that it's good for them to make sure that they are convinced about their business model, their product, and also the capacity of their business to grow. Because if they are convinced, it will be easier for them to convince others, and also it will help them to define the right partners, because all is like customers. Everyone can't be your customer, so anyone can't be your investor. You need to pick your investor depending on what you want to do, and even your funding strategy. I mean, you might not need an external investor to start with, so your funding strategy will be defined by your goals and where you want your business to head to, and the type of business you want to start or to grow. That's the first thing. The second thing is to do their due diligence, and search about the investors, understand them, understand the type of businesses they invest in, and also understand the way they speak, what they are looking for when companies are coming to pitch to them, and even try to network to get people around, people either that already got funds from this investor, or that know this investor, in order to approach the investor the right way. Because usually the day you approach the investor, you need to make sure, at least to make a good impression, not to get investment, but at least to be able to move forward. And that takes me as well to another piece of advice I would give is, to understand that the road to get funding is long. We see that all the women that we support, I mean, they take months and months and months to get funding, to close a round of funding, because they get a lot of no's on the way. But even if after pitching they get a yes, usually it's a yes for another meeting. It's not a yes for funding. It's a yes to get to the next step, to the next stage. And so anyone needs to understand that there are different steps, different stages, that the road is long, but most of the time it's worth it if with patience and perseverance. And once they reach their goal and get the funding, when they look backward, they realize that, yeah, it was really, really intensive. So patience and perseverance is key as well. That's what I would say.
Yeah, the road is truly long, but it is worth it. And if we follow the right steps, we are going to derive the right benefits and profits that we're looking for. Thank you very much on that, Sonia.
Yeah.
Moving on to Yana, I'd like to ask, how can investors balance the need for financial returns with the desire to support socially responsible and ethical businesses?
Yeah, it's a good question, because of course the goal of every venture capital investor is first of all to choose like the best return on the investment. So of course all this social impact investments, they are rather tangible, and it's not like an immediate effect, and it's not always easy to calculate like ROI on a short basis. It's more like a long-term investment. And in general, each investor is a decision maker. He's usually have a very clear, like business consequences, business numbers, metrics, what he wants to see. So I'm very much involved in sustainability, yeah, and I support projects that address this sustainable issues, that technologies that improve us to reach net zero, what is also like a part of the government initiative. For example, in the UAE, there are a lot of strategies and so on. But unfortunately, when you come to family offices and when you come to investors, they all ask for immediate, return for some financials rather than thinking about some ethical impact and social impact. It's just for them, it's just like a pure numbers instead of just some unclear, untangible goal somewhere in the end. But I think it's also mentality that it's now changing. People are becoming in general more social responsible. People just behave differently now. I even like look at my son, whom also you saw. He's just 6, but he's so careful. Like, don't waste water. Switch off the tap. Like, electric cars are better. When I grow up, I want to get Tesla. So like, don't litter. This is for recycling. So again, in schools, like at least in Dubai, these British curriculums, they are much focused now on sustainability. Even if you use something with for crafts, they ask parents to bring some material, like recyclable material, that they can use further on for crafts. So I think it's just again education. It's again a development. And of course, it's different from various markets, like more developed markets where it's like a Maslow pyramid. When you close your certain necessities, you already think about your soul and about, long-term commitments and social responsibilities. But in the more developing markets, or in the markets affected by some disaster or war, unfortunately, like you just think about covering your basic needs. So to me, it's like the more market is developed, the better life is in the society, the more people are looking at bringing some value and some impact, beyond just like tangible metrics. So women tend to have, as I already said, according to surveys and statistics, they really tend to have this more social impacted businesses. So let's engage more women into business, help to provide them with various fundings. Women, according to statistics, women-owned startups get funded. They hire 2.5 times more women than men. So then it's just like speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. So I think it's my answer. Education, development, like of the society, and addressing your basic needs, and then you go to the next level and you think about future and your future of your kids and future of your generations, and then you look at the projects to finance that not only add some benefits for your own pocket, but also some value for the society or for further generations.
Okay, great. Thank you very much on that, Yana. And by, we are getting to the end of the session. And I would like to ask my last round of questions. And these ones would go to all of you. The first one is, what advice do you have for women entrepreneurs on building a strong and compelling business case for investors? And then, Sonia, would you like to go first on this?
I mean, for investors, well, first of all, they need to, and that goes back a bit to what I said, to be clear about where they are heading, to show that they are real leaders and they know where they want to go. Because usually investors don't really, especially at early stages, they don't really invest in the business, so to say. They invest more in the entrepreneur themselves. So they need to be confident, to show confidence. They need to ask for what they need and to ask boldly for that. And also, they need to have clarity as well on how they plan to spend the money and what they plan to do with that, to reassure the investors. Um, so no matter the idea, I think it's more about the confidence that reassure investors to know that, because they know that the entrepreneur will pivot if something goes wrong, or if actually the strategy doesn't really work out, they really want to have someone that will be able to make it work no matter what, and to bring something, and also to have their figures in mind, to show the profitability, but also to have the figures when they get asked all the questions about their margins, or they need to be clear about that to be able to have the answers. So that's all I have to say, because time is running.
Yes, there's more about clarity to Sonia. Yana?
I think it depends on the stage of the startup. If it's like a very initial stage, like I saw a lot of pitching myself, and I introduced a lot of startups to investors, family offices. If it's a very initial stage, so it's usually about the team, who is in the team, how experienced they are, if they already had some, experience in startups, especially if they had some exits and to big companies, like everything is about the team initially. And yes, it's also about passion. So about your own confidence in your project, how you pitch, how passionate, how your eyes are shining, that's just really drives investors, to believe you. And also a lot of times companies don't invest their own money. When you ask them like, well, how much did you invest so far, your own money or your family, friends? Oh, we did not, we're looking for investors. So like your friends and yourself, you don't want to invest. Why? You don't believe in your idea? It's like you think it just does not worth it. So why you think that other people and investors, unknown people, will believe in you and give you some funding if your family and friends and yourself did not provide any funding? So it's like really, really big no. When it's some certain stage, like when it's like a growth, then you really need like experts. You need proper mentors, you need proper experts if you really want to go to another level. And then investors are usually looking, yes, who are your experts, who are your mentors, who are your maybe board members, how scalable is your project, how easy it is to scale, what are the restrictions, why you would not scale it, for the growth, or why you would be such a like, unique product that can be scalable, and adapted to almost each and every geography. So I would say for the growth stage, scalability is very important. And again, people, but more like on an expert level.
Okay. So personal commitments to push our own businesses, and then putting it out there and making sure that we are getting the right support. And yes, it's people. Um, we've gotten to the end, and I'd like to ask of your final words. And because of time, could limit your final words to a sentence. Your final words to the people out there listening to us, eager to grow their businesses and become successful, creating more impact. What is your final words to them in one sentence? And I'll start with Yana.
Take charge and take your own responsibility for your own career, for your own goals, for your own health, for your own life. Don't let anyone, interfere and tell you what to do or that you are not able to achieve this. Be self-confident, be open, and you know, just be responsible for your own life, because nobody else knows better than you, what suits you, what is really what you want to achieve.
Okay, thank you. Sonia?
I would just say be bold, take risk, be unique, just be you, because that's what at the end of the story will matter, and will make you succeed in your own field, because you are being yourself.
Thank you very much. We've gotten to the end of our session on the digital cooperation and investment ecosystem of the future, and focusing on women. We know that we have shared, our panelists have shared very insightful thoughts with their diverse perspectives on how women can succeed in this in investment, in digital cooperation, in this ecosystem that we're in, looking at the future. And we hope that we are going to work together, give the needed support to women-led businesses for them to be successful. And in all, we would say that let us all take charge. The power is ours, and make it happen. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Okay, that was another set of amazing panel that talked about the digital cooperation investment ecosystem of the future. We really appreciate your professionalism and want to thank you for the point you made and all the questions you helped address so brilliantly for us in this summit. Looking forward to hearing from you all speak again. Thank you so much. And at this point, I would like to transition the session to our operations and event manager. That's Letitia Boateng. Welcome, Letitia. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bella. All right. Well, what a way to end the Women History Month. So on behalf of GSC team, I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude to all participants and especially the speakers who aided in making this event possible. So it has been a privilege to witness so many passionate discussions and informative presentations on a wide range of topics, from cutting-edge research to practical applications in various fields. I hope this knowledge shared here today would continue to inspire and inform our work going forward. I would like to also thank our sponsors and partners for their support and contributions, without which this event would not have been possible. Finally, I'd like to encourage everyone out there to stay connected and continue the conversation that has been started here. Let's not keep the conversation settled. Let's continue to learn from each other, explore new ideas, and work together to create a better future for all. Thank you once again, and we look forward to connecting with all of you. Bye-bye.
Unless half the world's population, who are actually women, step up and take their place with men, it will be very hard for us to build the world that we need in the future.
We feel like we can't fail. We hear so often that women don't get a second chance to fail. Men get to fail all the time, but women get that one chance and that's it. And especially in any kind of innovative field, or if you're trying to make a mark and do something different, you have to fight for your right to fail.
All of you watching this video today, never give up. Hard work, perseverance, support and guidance from mentors and sponsors will take you places.
Promoting women into leadership positions, preparing women to serve in leadership positions is important.
The idea here is to be real and true to yourself. So look at the metaverse as a chance to be more you than you can ever imagine.
We've got to ensure that women have equal access to creating this world, because otherwise we will just duplicate the biases that we have in this world.
Our work is guided by a global strategy on gender equity and equality, which seeks to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, advance women's roles in global discussions on peace and security, and improve women's economic security.
Women are more often asked what could go wrong, and men are more often asked what could go right.
When in my assignments abroad, I've met impressive women who truly have contributed to something major. And they've been reinforced in me no less when I've met women who have harbored great ideas but who did not implement them because of some element of the country's system or society that holds back women's initiatives.
So we're looking at governments and private sector, especially the big tech companies, to work together to say, look, it's no longer all about shareholder capitalism, it's stakeholder capitalism, right? And women, whether they're in the developed countries or developing countries, need to be part of those. So
inspiring more and more empowered female tech entrepreneurs to participate will create that tipping point where we no longer feel like we don't belong.
Reporting lets you visualize data about your users and their behavior across your website or app.
Never really thought that this platform would be a space for women to not only hear from thought leaders, but also provide solutions, innovations, and ideas to really accelerate, ecosystems and communities that empower women of all different backgrounds and facets.